Thank you for checking out our podcast today. We hope that the teaching you're about to hear would inspire you and motivate you on your incredible journey in becoming a better you. So please turn your attention to today's message.
So as we wrap up this month's topic on family, my heart overall was for us to grasp the ramifications and long-term effects of how our parenting decisions, both negative and positive, inadvertently or intentional, can have a long-lasting impact and effect in our family for many, many generations. So we kicked off the month of July with focusing on the people of Israel's entrance into Egypt. Typically, when we talk about Israel and we talk about Egypt as a topic overall, we always focus on the exit. It's always about the exit. But this whole month, we've been talking about how did the people of Israel enter into Egypt and how did they end up being captive for 400 plus years. So that's what we've been talking about all July. We learned that the people of Israel initially were fleeing from the harsh conditions of a famine where they were in their homeland. As a result of this great famine, they end up in Egypt. And after learning of their siblings' role, talking about Joseph there, they put roots down and they would end up in Egypt for 400 plus years. But we also learned that a new king, somebody say new king. We learned that a new king arose in Egypt and that this king was not familiar nor acquainted with who Joseph was. So we learned that God wasn't the influence of the previous king. Listen to this very carefully because we are a bit different here and some of the things that we emphasize. And I think this makes such a very great point in that the previous king before this new one was influenced not by God, but was influenced by a man of God. The previous king had been exposed to the God that was seen and found in the life of Joseph, in his character, in the way he carried himself, not because of the way he worshiped or where he worshiped or what he, no, it was just about there's something about this particular man that is different and everything he touches prospers. So this previous king was influenced and impacted in such a way that the new king wasn't. So we learn that God was with Joseph in a time in history, check this out, where there were no churches. God was with Joseph in a time where there was no disciples, no apostles, there was no tabernacle, sacrificial system, a process of atonement, no priests. In fact, there was no Bible. Most importantly, not even 10 commandments. Not even commandments. And in that time, something sustained Joseph in a foreign land, and not only did it sustain him, but it caused him to prosper and to be influential in the midst of a king. Does anybody remember what that was? The what? Go ahead, girl, talk. She like, what his dad told him. Because you did that. I saw that. So listen, what sustained Joseph in a foreign land? What caused him to be a person of influence, to be influential, to prosper? Not the church. Oh, you're like, whoa. Not the church, not the pastor, not the priest, not the system. You know what it was? It was the word that he got from his dad. Where did he get that word? home. He got a home. That word sustained him in a place where there was no church, there was no Bible, no commandments, no system, nothing. That word alone sustained him and caused him to prosper. Not only that, but it was that same word that he uses in turn to share with the next generation. We also learn that that the promise that sustained him was something simple. She said, "This land is not your land." You ever heard this song that we learned as kids? This land is your land. This land is mine. You remember that song, right? That was not the promise. So the promise here is like, hey, this land is not your land. You guys are not here permanent. You're not of this world. You're going to prosper. You're going to grow. You're going to be a mighty nation. And when you guys go, you make sure that you take my bones out of this place because I'm part of this promise. That's what sustained him. Listen, that's what sustained Joseph. So in fact, Joseph raised his children and his children's children, Scripture says, on his knees. And it had nothing to do with prayer. It had to do with symbolically what he was doing, all right? And what he was doing is that he was serving as an emotional and a spiritual parent to the next generation and the generation after that. So just because his kids were grown, parenting did not stop in his life. Just like your children are grown, parenting doesn't stop in your life. What you talking about, Willis? Yeah, no. And you're like, well, what? You mean I'm still? That's right, you're still a parent. Listen, because one of the saddest things in our community as a church is the fact that our children continue to attend churches where they still feel fatherless, they still feel motherless, they still feel where they're not connected with anyone, when the assembly is the place where we are here to be an extension of parenthood to everyone that's around us. Now listen, so Joseph dies and all of that generation dies. The Bible tells us that the Israelis grew and they were mighty. They grew and they were a mighty people. But none had the influence over the new king that Joseph had. Though the Bible still says that they were thriving, they were growing. And it's very much like we are doing today as parents, where our focus is growing successfully, that we are mighty, that our names are known. And listen, we absolutely have absolutely no influence in anyone else's life but our own. This shows us that these guys were growing, they were prosperous. But it meant nothing. The Israelis would come into Egypt and they were going to thrive for about 100 years. And then the new king comes along, and though they were growing, they were prospering. Guess what? That growth, that prosperity now turns into a threat, and it leads them into captivity. So I heightened the dysfunction in Joseph's father's house. So last week I spent some time, in particular in verse 51 of Genesis 41. Let's read this quickly with me. Joseph named his older son. Now you have to remember that he is now in a foreign land, and in this foreign land he has these kids. He now has a family. He becomes acclimated. He learns the language. He has a career. He's a politician right alongside of the king. He's a man of influence. He has a family. He has two kids. And he names one of them, the older son, he names him what? Manasseh. For he said, God, come on, read this out loud with me. God has made me forget all about my trouble and everyone. Joseph's dysfunction drives him to a point in his life where he had to make a decision to emotionally cut off and to emotionally cut out people in his life and people in his past that hurt him and were toxic. And then he understands where he is, completely separated from dad, from family, from brothers, and he goes, I'm going to give my son this name as a constant reminder that, you know who did this? God did this. We talked about, I briefly mentioned last week about culturally, how Lord, help me. I have to say this. But, you know, we come into this country, and in our country, we are a melting pot. And we come to our country, and one of the things that we bring with us, which is important, I think it's what makes us an amazing country, we bring our culture, we bring our traditions. It's just a beautiful thing. I love this church because none of us look alike, and that's awesome. It's great. But we also bring dysfunction with us. And we bring traditional dysfunction and cultural dysfunction. We bring that stuff, and a lot of us still hold on to stuff that's just cultural. It's cultural, and you won't let it go. And the amazing thing is that Jesus preached the gospel of the kingdom. Somebody say kingdom. See, the kingdom of the gospel of the kingdom in itself is a culture. It has a culture. And see, it supplants and it does away with all other traditions and cultures. And it's one of the things that we have this pride of who we are and where we come from and our ethnicity and our ancestry. But we forget that from the moment that you are born again of a new culture. So yes, I am Puerto Rican. I love adobo, I love achote, I love sofrito. I love it. Love it. If you don't know what it is, that's your problem. But the culture, my culture, okay, where I come from, cannot supplant or outdo the one that Jesus establishes here on earth. That's my culture. You get that? All right, so sometimes we get this wrong. And the reason I had brought that up last week is that, you know, in our culture, Hispanics, we hold on to our kids longer than we should. Yes. If you are a Hispanic, you know that Hispanic families hold on to their kids to, you know, they're about 40. Some of you are living at home with mom and dad right now. So it becomes a culture, it's a cultural thing. However, our cultures cannot outdo what the culture of the kingdom is. And scriptures teach us that we are to train up the child in the way that it should go. Marty loves it. Tamara loves it. So she just said, go. Kingdom. Go. All right, so everybody follow me? Everybody getting that with me? All right. Because listen, I get it. Mexican culture is different, and we have people here from Chile, and look at her. She's ooh. And people from Argentina, and people from different parts of Africa, and I get it. Listen, I get it. I get it. But the kingdom has a different standard. All right? And this is where Joseph finds himself, that he gives his child a name, and he calls him Manasseh, for God has made me forget all my troubles and everyone in my father's family. The dysfunction in Joseph's family, Joseph's life, is passed down. It was done in a subliminal way, and it was done by dad. He did that inadvertently. Let's go to Genesis chapter 37. I touched on this. To get all of the details, I can't get into all of the details of this, bless you. To get into all of the details, you got to just listen online and get all this, because it's a lot that I'm trying to wrap up today. So Jacob is his dad, all right? So here, listen to Dad. Jacob loved Joseph. Come on, say that out loud. Whoa, stop. Jacob loved Joseph. Stop. Jacob loves Joseph. He loves him what? He loves him what? Parents, we all have that one, right? All right. I'm just testing. That was a test. See, that was a test. It was a test to see if you're paying attention or not. See what culture you from. All I know is in my house, we have one. Anyway, all right. So he loved Joseph more than any of his other children because Joseph had been born to him in his old age. And I don't have time to get into what happened to him in the season, in the stage of his life. And many of us, we have children in different seasons and stages in our lives. And according to those seasons and stages in our lives, our parenting, okay, is shifted. You know how one child couldn't get away with some stuff that the other, like, you know what I'm talking about, all right. So one day, Jacob has a special gift made for Joseph. It was a beautiful robe. I didn't bring it in this morning. It's at home because I wear it. But his brothers what? His brothers what? They hated Joseph because of the robe. Huh? They hated him because of the robe. They hated Joseph because their father loved him more than the rest of them. Did you get that? I've been to many churches and they teach this, and it is like, that's not what that said. It was because the dad loved more. Okay? They couldn't even say a kind word to him. So I touched a bit on the passing down or the transferred dysfunction from one family to another family. But more importantly, how it happened, it was subtle. And the Bible says that Jacob, Joseph's dad, is giving his son a special gift. It was manifested. What he had in his inner being was manifested in the gift that he had given his son. It was just by the gift's implications. That's all it was. And the implication here was, I love you just a little different than those guys. This was seen not just because of the gift, but also because Jacob would often ask Joseph at 17 years old, and he would pit him up against his brothers, against his siblings, and he would say, go check to see what your brothers are doing, and I want you to come back and report what they're doing. So in essence, what he was doing is, I'm transferring my authority as dad, I'm giving it to you, the young one, and I want you to do my job. And we don't do that ever. Joseph isn't deliberately being a jerk to his brothers. I said jerk, that's right. He's simply being obedient to dad. Dad may not think that what he is doing is going to be detrimental or that there are going to be consequences for this, but what we learn is that they traded him off. They sold him off. However, initially, what brewed in their heart was to murder him. If you don't think that there are consequences in the lack of intentionality in how we parent, you're wrong, parents. I shared stats last week about the increasing cases of suicide. And the CDC, the Center of Disease and Control, they did a study between 1999 to 2015, and 1,039 children under the age of 13 committed suicide. under the age of 13 years old. 1,039. That is, for 17 years, every 5 days, one child took his life. Under the age of 13. I think the youngest was 5. And when they were doing the research, what they found was that the common thread was, you'd probably think that it was bullying in school. No, sibling rivalry at home. Bullying that was happening at home. The pressure and distresses of family. Let me tell you, man, I read the prayer cards, all these prayer cards that you guys write out and you put in there. And can I tell you, some of the most moving prayer requests that I get from the kids. Kids are praying for your financial problems. Kids are praying for the lack of joy you have. And on and on. And it just breaks my heart because it is a projection. And we're going to get into that. So Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4 says, fathers, who's it talking to? Fathers, who's it talking to? In a time where we leave the things of the Spirit or the things of church and the things of faith, we kind of leave it to the moms, dads. You gotta wake up. You gotta wake up. Get off of the TV. Get away from it. Leave the backyard alone. Just a little. Spend some time. And it says, dads, listen. Do not provoke. What does it say? Do not provoke your children to anger. And I can explain to fathers because that's more of a paternal. It's more of it also includes moms. So moms, you're not going to get away with that. You heard that? You heard what the pastor said? You heard it's right there in Scripture. He said, you, dad, you need to get off that TV. Turn it off. Pay attention. Stop provoking. No, it was just talking about it's parental. Do not provoke your children to anger by the way you what? By the way you what? By the way you what? Treat them. Rather, bring them what? You bring them what? You bring them what? Bring them up with the discipline and instruction that comes from who? Where's it come from? Where's it come from? The instruction that I raise my children doesn't come from dad. Does it come from my abuelita, nana? Where does it come from? Where does it come from? Part of our problem is that we're raising our children today with some of the strategies and the techniques of abuelita. And some of you guys, and some of us, we hate on our screenagers. You guys know what a screenager is? You know what a screenager is? You don't know what a screenager is? Those teens that are always on their screens, they're called screenagers. And we're hating on the screenagers because they're always on that phone, always on it. You're just mad because you had a black and white TV. So, because if you had what they have, it'd be the same thing. So it's just, are you understanding? It's the technique, it's the instruction. It's always evolving. It's always changing. The method changes, not the instruction, I'm sorry. The method changes, but the instruction comes from where? The Lord. Jacob himself had been a product of his mother's projection. She had projected to him a sense of superiority. So here he is as a young boy. This is Joseph's dad. As a young boy, all right, he is also learning from mom how to be a narcissist. Projection is when our inner conflicts can be reflected back at us through others. So as parents, we can project onto our children in a good way, and we can do it in a bad way. Unfortunately, most of us do it in a bad way. And sadly enough, it happens in our churches. You know, our churches, you look around, man, that just kids don't want to be part of a church anymore. They're just dying to go to college so that they just can, just bounce. They they don't believe your faith anymore. They don't. So as parents, we project good and we project bad. The worst part about this is that most of what we project happens under the radar. It goes unnoticed. In the case of Jacob, he gave a gift that blatantly said, you're special to me, not like the others. It manifested a message of prejudice. Preference. My sister knows when we were growing up, my brother, my dad is black skin. My mom is white skin. So my sister and I are born white skin. My brother is right in between. So we used to call him chocolate. And when my dad and my mom would go at it sometimes, my dad would just say, it's just because the chocolate. And it was, and I'm thinking, so I guess we're milk, But it happened in the home, and it happens under the radar. It happens as children. Projection is a sort of defense mechanism that causes us to attach things that we find unacceptable in ourselves to someone else. To some degree, projecting plays a most inconspicuous role in all of our relationships. Husbands and wives, we project to each other all the time. It might cause us to dislike people in our family who have negative characteristics that are very similar to ours. And it might cause us to idolize at times a dad or a mom. And it creates a healthy and a very dysfunctional environment. So when we look at projecting, it's harmful because we can influence our children to develop a mindset and behaviors in an attempt to appease or to reject a projected emotion. So we have to be very, very careful with that, because then you have the child who then learns how to reject it, another one how to appease. For example, a son that grows up feeling as though he could never achieve the natural prowess of a younger one. My son Jose was an avid saxophone player, so because I saw him like, and it was like going, wow. And he won a few contests, right? And I saw the cash prizes, but bing! Oh yeah, I'm going to squeeze this thing. And so he is winning these competitions, and so then I project onto my son Adrian. But so I give Adrian a trumpet, and Adrian. So it's the other one. It's and I remember how much I'd pressure Adrian to practice so that he could be like his brother. And I did that under the radar. It was subliminal. It was like, it's like, look at Pablo, man, he practices and he does this naturally, and you see what he does, and look at the trophies, and he's like, and he hated that instrument. And I said that our children don't belong to us. They come to us, but they're not of us. And there's already a purpose and a destiny that comes from heaven that's been given to them and assigned to them. And it's our role to guide them and just put them on the path. But it's not our role to come into conflict with what the purpose is from God to our children. So Adrian, at about the age of 14, listen, I pushed this boy till he was 14 years old. You know when he stopped playing the trumpet? He stopped playing the trumpet when he got braces. When he got braces, that was the best thing that ever happened to him. All right. All right. You ain't going to do it. So he couldn't. And then you know what happened? Naturally, what manifested in him is what God wanted to do with him. And today he produces amazing music. It has nothing to do with a trumpet. And his brother's over there going, blah, 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 whatever. You know, who cares about him anymore? You know? This guy's good too. So no, but what I'm saying is that there are times that as parents, you know, if we're not careful, that might say, hey, not everyone is successful. Not everyone can be like Papa. So, hey, man, you know, it's okay if you suck, you know. And then you project failure. And sometimes we do it with our kids, one who is athletic and the other one who isn't. Listen, my sister's here, and I can't lie, but I was, you know, I wish she had not been here because this story would have been awesome. But my brother is athletic, and his room is filled with trophies and stuff. I had one trophy for an accidental goal that I got, and I remember the constant rivalry between us. This is nothing, but it's obvious projection and stuff that we do, and we do it inadvertently. And sometimes we think, I just want to encourage, I just want to inspire. Often unable to navigate through feelings of failure, then Dad would, unconsciously, we hand stuff off to one child. And now that child runs with this, and then he does it to his children. And it snowballs out of control, which is what happened in the life of Jacob. Listen, Jacob didn't get that. Jacob wasn't just doing that mess because that's what he wanted to do, but he learned it from Mama. And guess what? Mama got it from her parents. It started with it was like with Abraham, and it just continued to go. And I like the fact that Joseph is at a point in his life where he goes, enough is enough. This is not going to continue in my family. And this is the position and the stance that a lot of us have to take, but we won't take. My wife and I went through 12 years of a living hell in our marriage. We despised each other, hated each other, domestic abuse in our marriage while we attended Daddy's church. Clapped our hands and prayed and sang songs. We'd go home and it was a living hell. And it was not until I said, whoa, something's got to be different. I got to use a different strategy. I got to use a different technique than that of what I learned from Papi. Why? Because my dad could speak to my mom in a certain way because it came from an era, it came from a culture that was not where I am today. And I was trying to do the same thing. Hey, baby, where's my food? What did you say? Yeah. So it was not like that at all. Becky loves to cook. Hence, right? But for the first 12 of our lives, man, it was horrible. Why? Because I was trying to do the same things I learned at home, and it doesn't work. Parents often, this projection turns into discouragement unto our children. We insult our children when they don't match up to the other ones, where they don't achieve like the other ones, where they don't score, where they don't meet, or they don't do. Why can't you be more like your brother, or you can't be more like your sister? And what we don't know is that we're projecting this stuff. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 11 says, therefore, encourage what? One another. And build what? One another up. Just as you're doing. Encourage. Colossians chapter 3, verse 21 says, what? Fathers, do not what? Aggravate your children, or they'll what? In my days, I'd be up 5 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, your days suck, Pop. Yeah, like, sorry. We have AC. It's nice to kind of sleep in and sit in front of the TV and eat a bowl of cereal and watch some cartoons. Y'all remember them days? You guys know what I'm talking about? Yeah, your days, I'd be out there too in the field chopping something up, but we're not there anymore. Moms can sometimes compare, weight, height, hair, color between children all of the time. You light, girl. Opportunities are going to open up for you. All this garbage. Just garbage that goes. You know, I'm telling you, man, bigotry is something that we learn at home. Just prejudice and all of this, you learn it at home. I think one of the most beautiful things that we have been able to do in our archives with our photos here is to see the beauty of the children here holding each other, just loving on each other. And I look at these pictures and I go, honey, look. Who segregates these children? Who does that? We do. Dads, we often project rivalry by identifying physical weaknesses in children or lack certain abilities. You can't catch, boy? Show your brother how you do this. Go ahead. You see, that's how you do it, boy. Poor kid over here is trying. That was me. I was horrible. You know, I taught both of my, listen, as a result, I projected that. Listen, I would come from work every day, play catch with Bobo and Adrian, and they hated it. They hated it because I'd aim and I'd never just catch. and the kids are, you know, and I wanted them to be the athlete that I wasn't. So I'm going to share just 6 suggestions. Again, I get the Reese's are right here. Monty, you come up over here. Sit over here. Why are you so far away, Mama? Sit over here, just in case. Come on, just in case. Monty holds it down too. Monty holds it down. Come on, walk this way, girl. Be proud of your degree. No, so listen, and it's very important. And I asked these guys. We have about 10, 15 minutes. I'm just going to give 6 real quick suggestions as a dad, not an expert. Okay, I'm not Dr. Phil. All right. I made a lot of mistakes as a dad. I did, right, Bobo? I made a lot of mistakes. I did, and I learned. So when my daughter, Alexis, we were young parents. Thank you, honey, for helping me. We were young parents. And when my daughter, Alexis, is born, she gets a seasoned dad who's in a whole different era, different stage. Dad's not broke anymore. You discipline different when you're broke. When you got to wait another week for that check to come, your discipline is different. You know what parents, you know what I'm talking about. You know, discipline is different with tax returns too. It's okay, sugar. It's okay. But Alexis inherited that dad. So you know, it was different. And the boys be like, "Oh, you mean she got away with that?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah, it's different. Different stage." So I'm going to give you these real quick suggestions. And these guys are going to jump in if anything. And you may agree or disagree with me. That's okay. But anyway, I just want to give these guys an opportunity. But number 1, parents, evaluate your words. Parents, evaluate your words daily. Not weekly. Every day, do a self-inventory of all of the words that came out of your mouth. In your home. To your children. To each other. Moms and dads, listen, you're raising the husbands of tomorrow. You're raising the moms of tomorrow, the mothers of tomorrow. So evaluate your words daily. Ask yourselves, have I built up my children? Have I built up my husband in the presence of my children? Have I built up my wife in the presence of my children? Or have I negatively projected stuff that's going to impact generations? Remember that the generation of Israel, they end up 400 years in captivity. Why? Because of projection. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29 says, let no corrupting talk come out of your mouth, but only such as is good for what? Building up as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to who? The ones that listen. You guys agree with that? Yeah? All right. Am I okay so far? All right. Dr. Reese, anything? Good? But I'm just saying that because it helps. It's helped me. And there are times, listen, Becky and I are going to celebrate 30 years of marriage in September. Right? And there's times that we still have to evaluate the words that come out of her mouth. Because there's times that she can get under my skin. And there are times that I get under her skin. But listen, and so we have to evaluate the things that we say. And now I have grandchildren. I have 5 grandchildren. I have to be careful with the things that come out of my mouth. So I have to evaluate daily. I don't know if you guys do that at all, but go ahead. You have the microphone? Go ahead. Go ahead, Doc.
Not only evaluate your words daily, but be quick to ask for forgiveness.
Very good. That's also one of my points. That's okay. You got ahead of me. You're fired. All right, but number 2. Okay, but listen, and you guys can, you can piggyback on that stuff. But listen, the other thing is also communicate with your children. Talk. Seriously, talk. When you sit at the table, stop giving them the tablet. Take the tablet. Listen, talk to each other. Let your children learn the history of their ancestors, the family. Jemima and I can tell you everything there is to know about my dad. And we talk all the time. Every time they're like, well, dude, just shut up. My grandkids, you should have heard them. Could we take a break? Lola, please. You communicate. Talk. Go ahead.
One of the things I remember, and I'll make this really quick, but one of the things that I remember is by degree, families and youth, that's what I do. I'm a therapist. I give parenting classes, all of that. But one thing I'm thankful to God for is that my life alone, my experiences with my children was the greater of teachers. I've read many books, I've done many parenting classes, and I've read everything there is to read, and I've given that. But when it came into my own walk, it was a completely different thing. And so when you were saying that about, I heard T.D. Jakes one time, and this is at a time that I'm fresh out of divorce.
Why couldn't it be Pastor J? It had to be T.D. Jakes.
Well, I'm sorry. I have these 3 kids, and I'm like, okay, I'm outnumbered for 1. And for 2, everything I read in the book, Tiana's going into that earlier ages where we're heading into teens, and she's kind of getting mouthy, and and what my book is saying is not working. What my mom was saying is not working. I'm like, oh, la chancleta, I'm coming out my slipper, and she's like, I'm still going to say what I'm going to say. Okay, so it's not working. So now what do I do? And one of the things T.D. Jakes had said one time was, you cannot have a team if everyone on the team does not know your plan. And I was just like, So what I started to do, and very, very busy, I worked 2 jobs, had these kids, was Sundays we would sit for 30 minutes as a family, just me and my kids, and what are we doing this week? I can't talk about next week, 5 years from now, right now, but what are we doing this week? So we had that moment to talk, to say, this is our plan, because we're a team. This is our plan for the week. This is what we're going to do. Who's doing what sport? Mommy has to work 2 jobs, so this is my schedule you'll be with. So that the confusion, anxiety, and frustration didn't become part of our problem. We had many, but that wasn't one because of communication.
Very good. Very good. Had to be TDJ. I could have said that. I probably said it. You were probably not here that Sunday. No, but listen, and in communicating, also empower your children with the permission to give feedback. You don't like that, do you? It's okay, and I ask my daughter all the time, and my kid, you think I was out of line? You think that was too rough? And my daughter often like, yes, Dad. But yeah, communication is very important. And so what do you communicate about? And we can go on and on and on about that. But I got to move on. Number 3, listen to the words listen to the words within the words. There are times that your children are trying to tell you hurts and pains that they have, and sometimes you're not listening to the words within the words. How was your day at school? It was all right. Oh, okay. It's going to get better, guy. It's going to be better. Just keep at it. It's going to get better. Pry a little. Oh, no? What's going on, man? Let's chat about this a little. Let's just sit down. Let's chat about it. I had Frank the other day at the house, and we were having pizza, coffee, and so we were just doing some stuff, and he shared something that moved me. It just like, he doesn't know it, but it was like, ooh. And I was like, you can't show your weakness because you're tough. Don't. Suppress it. But do you remember what you shared at the table? If you don't mind, I don't know. Guys, this guy he has no degree, so just be careful, all right? No, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. No. But what did you share? I thought that was pretty cool.
We were all just eating and
listen to that voice.
Auto-tune. We were all just joking around, eating, sharing stories and everything. And I looked at them. I stopped and I was like, I want to tell you guys something. Growing up, I never had any of this. I never got to sit around in front of a table and with my family. Growing up for me, it was get a plate, go your separate way. And I was with Pastor Jay and his beautiful family, and I thanked them for it because I never had that.
And it was one of the most awkward things because I got pizza sauce all down my shirt, and I'm just sloppy, sucking on my thumb, like, and he breaks into this real emotional moment of just an observation that he had, and he thanked us, and it was like, bro, you ruined it for us. Oh, like keep that to yourself. But listen, man, sit at the table, listen to the words within the words, all right? Pay attention. Girls hurt differently than boys do. And boys hurt differently than girls. So it's, and if you're a single parent, it's real hard because a mom she probably may not understand how this boy is functioning and operating. Because boys are weird, And then, all right, but, bless you. Are you guys understanding what I'm talking about? Pay attention to the words within the words. All right. Next, give your children time and space to grow. Give them some space. Shh, give them some space. Give them an opportunity to grow. They're going to mess up. They're not, and this is one of the things that I really encourage all parents. You probably heard me say this 1,000 times, and I'm going to say it more. I'll say it again. But listen, don't rely on your words. You have to trust and have faith in God's word that you have sown into your children. Why? Because the word says that his word doesn't come back what? Void. His word will always produce a fruit. And listen, so if you do your job and you sow the seed into your children, don't stand over your children and demand that they grow. And we do this often. We stand over this seed, grow, and this is what we expect. Grow and fruit. And I'm like, bro, I need some time, man. So give your children space. They'll mess up sometime. You just make sure that, that they don't do some illegal stuff. But But you got to give them a little space. And parent, be encouraged in the word that you're sowing into your children. You guys, I mean, and I'm sorry, but and don't be weird religious about it either. So, did you hear me? Did you do the word of today? Did you do the verse of today? Did you remember it? Let me hear it. Let me hear it. Let me hear it. Repeat it. I want to hear it. Man, stop. Huh? Yeah, it is be parent. But I'm saying more than anything, just stop being so. I mean, I'm sorry.
And share the stories. I think one of the things that I did was when I decided that the word just wasn't for me and God was not just for me. And when they were little, we always say, God sees everything because they're little and you think, and we say it, but do you mean it? But then when they get to that teenage year, we forget to say that in a way that's not weird, in terms of, so, kind of like if your sink is broken, we will, because we don't want to pay, so we'll Google YouTube, my sink, what kind of sink, to find out, how to fix it. We can do that with the concordance of God, okay, so they're lying, or they're being disrespectful, or you've repeated something and you look in the concordance, Google on your phone what scriptures speak to this behavior and have that conversation with them. And one thing that, my God, I'm a visual learner. And so what always sat with me were the stories, the true stories of the Bible. Yeah. That, oh, well, God sat at tables. It was funny because when I was younger, someone had mentioned in passing, I remember as a child, that God flipped a table. So that was always, to me, was my thing, like, you knew God flipped tables, right? This is why I'm about to get mad, right? But it was one of those, if he flipped it, I'm going to flip it. But just those little stories that we can share, and there's so many. God is so good because he's put so many stories on so many levels where he was tempted. Our children are tempted all the time, as we are. And there were stories where he was tempted, and us sharing that and taking it off of us. A lot of times we're not even transparent with our own stuff. My kids do stuff now that I know I did as a child. But somehow in my mind, I feel if I share that I did that, then they're going to see my weakness. And right now, I'm telling them what they need to do. So just, that's part of it.
My last 2 points, and we're done. Thank you. Let's give Patty a hand. To Dr. Reese's point, listen to this one. Don't be too prideful to apologize. Parents, don't be too prideful to take a moment and say you messed up. You yelled when you shouldn't have yelled. You stomped when you shouldn't have stomped. You broke out of character when you shouldn't have. Parent, don't be prideful. Take a moment and apologize, and it's okay. Listen, it's okay. One of the greatest things that my father taught me, and it was an amazing, listen, because I got the therapist here, and I am not condoning spanking. I'm not doing it. But I came from an era of spanking. Okay, that was my era. The chancleta, the belt, and my mom was different. My mom was the lamp, like she. But well, my dad was a little more modest. But after a good whooping, my dad would then break down and go, "Hey, can I talk to you, man? Listen, oh man, I had to discipline you, and I'm sorry that I had to do that." And I'm sitting, not a good time to talk right now. Wish we could take this conversation later, but but when he would leave and I was angry, it was the most warming thing. Like, he said sorry. He was wrong, and he became human. So don't be prideful. Don't spank. And there's a whole different topic. We'll follow. The last one: give your children the God in you. Give your children the God in you, not the God you worship. Give the God in you. Sometimes what we do is we give this mystical thing to our children. Be God. Let them see God in you. Let them experience mercy, compassion, generosity, forgiveness. Let them see those things. Don't just be this weird dude in the house. Okay, guys, it's time for our devotion. Everybody get over here, get together. Rally the troops. Who's going to do the verse of the day, and who's going to sing the songs, and and then we just get so weird, man. You know, be real. Give your children the God who's in you. And don't expect the pastor to do it for you. Don't expect the church service to do it for you. Do it at home. We estimated, we sat down and we calculated. If we grab all of the time in the year that we attend church service at the end of the year, all of the time and all of that hour, if you just accumulate all of that time, your whole church experience for the year adds up to only 3 days. 3 days. For some of us who attend church regularly, but for others it's a little less. But it's, 3 days out of the year. So give your children the God in you.
Thank you again for checking out our podcast. If you would like to find information about who we are or how to donate so that we can keep doing what we're doing, please check us out at www.scarletnote.org. See you next time.